Who are the top 10 bass anglers, the best bass anglers of all time? Now, I'm going to be going with a lot of tournament statistics, a lot of tournament input here. This is just my perspective after 25 years in the sport. I have fished against pretty much every one of these guys, or fished with them for some period, and I just think it's an interesting perspective. Got a couple honorable mentions as well, but I've kind of compiled my top 10 list of the best bass anglers of all time. So here we go. Number 10, we're going to start out with Skeet Reese. Skeet Reese is has an unbelievable track record. Coming from very little out there in California, and as far as where he started, got out there, made a name for himself out west. Then he came east. He's won Bassmaster Classic. He's won Angler of the Years. He's won a bunch of tournaments. And actually, I got to beat Skeet Reese for my first Bassmaster Elite Series win by 1 ounce. And then the very next tournament, Skeet came to Virginia and absolutely put on a show and dominated Smith Mountain Lake, my local lake. He dominated that 2 tournaments after I beat him by 1 ounce. So that's how that went. Got to see him firsthand. He was one of those guys that was just always in the money, consistent, versatile. He had a knack for figuring out how to win and catching big fish. He won a Elite Series on Lake Guntersville that I finished 3rd in. I mean, I was crushing them. I thought I had a good shot at winning that, but he said, "Oh no." He put on a big show, really all 4 days, especially that last day. He put on just a giant bag. I got to fish against Skeet. Like I said, shallow, great bed fisherman, great deep water fisherman, just phenomenal all-around tournament angler. That's why he's number 10. Number 9 on my list is going to be Mike Iaconelli. That's right, the Jersey boy, my buddy Iaconelli. I got to room with him for 12 plus years, and we're going to room together again next year in 2026. We'll get more into that later, but I got to see firsthand how Iaconelli works and how he does things. He's one of those guys that I can confirm to you would get zero help. He might do a little research on the internet, he might do that kind of stuff, but he would absolutely not be employing people for waypoints or any of that kind of stuff. That has been Mike from day one. He just works really, really hard on, nobody puts more time in on the water than Iaconelli, and he's still like that to this day. But he has got an unbelievable track record. Again, Bassmaster Angler of the Year, Bassmaster Classic win, numerous other Bassmaster wins. I think he had a FLW win back in the day out of that, I think it was a Kellogg's boat or something down there, Seminole maybe? Or no, he just, maybe that was another Bassmaster win, but for a long period of time, very, very consistent, caught a lot of fish, done very, very well. So that's why Iaconelli is number 9, and just a ferocious angler. I've gotten to fish with Mike a few times, and that just confirmed how good of a fisherman he really is. All right, so number 8, we're going to jump generations just a little bit. We're going to go back. Denny Brauer is my number 8 angler. Obviously one of the foremost flippers, period, end of story. One of the best flippers ever. I've gotten to watch Denny fish in person, very close range. Denny is one of the smoothest anglers casting I've ever seen when you're flipping and pitching. Just amazing to watch. I mean, I'd put Biffle, Andy Morgan, and maybe even Swindle into that category as far as just beauty in motion to watch as they fish. But Denny was a very underrated deep water fisherman. very underrated. Denny's won tournaments on a spinnerbait. He's won tournaments flipping a jig. He's won a number of tournaments. Obviously, Bassmaster Classic, I saw him win that down in Greensboro when they were fishing on High Rock. So just, he knew how to win, won plenty of events. And the other factor with Denny is that one of the few guys that I ever fished against, when he was in contention, he had this aura about him that was intimidating. Honestly, it was really kind of cool to be able to fish around. And Denny, he's always been very respectful and very nice to me. Denny and his son Chad and I were about the same age. That part was kind of cool. So when Chad was on tour, he and I would talk pretty regular. But Denny and I, whenever I see him, we always catch up. Always catch up on Chad and everything. But just a hell of a fisherman. Like I said, one of the grandfathers, if you will, of flipping. That's number 8. Number 7, Mark Davis. That's right, old Big Mark. Man, he had just had a tear. I mean, back-to-back Angler of the Years, multiple classics, unbelievable deep water fisherman, way ahead of his time on catching fish deep, and then also very, very good shallow water fisherman, very, very good sight fisherman. He could catch him any way possible. I'm telling you, Mark Davis, just a phenomenal angler for a long, long time, a ton of classics. He was one of those guys that you just expected to catch him, and he absolutely did. When I came into the sport, he was kind of on the tail end of his, of his prime. But man, just to see that guy do it, another guy that one of the best natural fishermen I've ever been around, ever seen, Mark Davis, for sure. Number 6, Larry Nixon. Dude, you need to look up, if you don't think that Larry Nixon's number 6 on this list, you need to look up his statistics. First guy to ever win $1 million bass fishing, and he's won a ton of events, won Bassmaster Classic, Angler of the Year, all that stuff. He's won everything you could win, a bunch of, I think 14 or so BASS wins, won a ton of events, one of the best, period, worm fishermen on the planet. Also thought it was really cool early on in my career, just like 2 or so years after we came out with the Spro Little John crankbait. He came to me and said, "Man, John, can you get me some of these crankbaits?" Like, absolutely. So I sent him a dozen of the Nasty Shad, and that was what he had a top 10 actually in an FLW tournament on that crankbait. He said he caught 100% of his fish on that crankbait. He loved that crankbait. And I thought was very cool. But man, if you just look at his statistics, undoubtedly a top 10 all-time fisherman. And I got to fish with Larry in an FLW when I was a co-angler early on, probably 2001. I was a co-angler on the FLW tour and fished with Larry, fished down there at the Mobile Delta. It looked a lot like the James River, and so I was very at home. I was using this little worm that we use on the James River back in the day, and I caught 2 keepers behind him pretty quick, like once I switched to that worm. And Larry, I'll never forget, Larry said, hey John, do you have any more of those worms? I said, yep. He said, could I have one? I said, yep. He said, put it right here on the deck. He pointed to the carb, he said, put it right here on the deck. And he said, what size weight do you have? I said, 3/16. So he took that worm, put a 3/16 weight. I mean, he went 40 yards up the bank, 2.5 pounder, like that's a hefty, that's like a 4 pounder anywhere else. Caught that fish and ended up catching a few more keepers, but we had a great day, just a great gentleman, been a good friend ever since. But that's Larry Nixon, number 6 on my list. Number 5 all time. Well, let's back up a step. We're gonna have some honorable mentions at the end here. So if you think that somebody on this top 10 list is not being mentioned, hold on to the end, because we're going to have some honorable mentions as well. But number 5 on my list, I don't think you cannot put this angler outside of the top 5 with what all he has done in his career, and that's Jacob Wheeler. Jacob Wheeler, he was the youngest angler ever to win the All-American. So right out of the gate, he knew how to win and how to catch bass. And ever since then, he has been on a tear. When he was on the Elite Series, unbelievable. Second in the Bassmaster Classic, almost won there in Knoxville. And then he came also to over to BPT and just has been dominant. Well, he won Angler of the Year again over there. He's won multiple Angler of the Years over there. Just puts in the work that it takes, even after being in the sport for as long as he has. He's been in, I guess pushing 20 years now, 18 or 20 years, something like that. His record on the BPT and the Bassmaster combined, unbelievable. Plus, like I said, he's won tons of other events. Just a phenomenal angler, and he's one of those anglers that has been dominant before forward-facing sonar, and then now that forward-facing sonar has come out, he is still dominant. And to me, that might even vouch for pushing him higher than number 5 on this list, but that's where I'm going to put him right now. Jacob Wheeler, number 5. Number 4, RIP, Aaron Martens. Aaron was a very, very good friend, unbelievable bass angler. He might be the best natural bass angler I've ever been around in my life. I think him and Mark Davis are kind of in that category of just just having a knack for understanding where bass are and going and finding fish that nobody else is even really fishing for. I mean, that takes a lot of that just takes a lot of intuition. That's not stupidity. That just takes intuition and understanding the habits of bass and being able to read the water so quickly that Aaron was just absolutely one of the best. Unbelievable finesse angler, great power fisherman. Unbelievable flipper. I mean, figuring out that bird pattern on Havasu. A lot of people remember that. He was catching those giant schools of fish offshore at Lake Guntersville before forward-facing sonar. I just wish he was able to compete with the forward-facing sonar, because I know he would be even better than like Jacob Wheeler has been able to transition from before and now with the forward-facing sonar. I'll bet you that Aaron would be absolutely lethal with forward-facing sonar. I wish we could have seen that, but had other plans for him, and just love that guy to death. One of the best humans. I just loved spending time with him. Loved Aaron to death, and I do very much still miss him. And myself and a number of other anglers on tour still put the A-Mart deal on our tournament jerseys, because we're never going to forget Aaron. So Aaron is my number 4. You cannot put him outside of the top 5, period. Number 3, Roland Martin. Roland Martin was an absolute pioneer in tournament bass fishing. He was controversial a lot early on in his career, probably much like a couple of the other guys in this top 10 and on the honorable mention list here. But Roland would find a way. If it was not against the rules, Roland would find a way to beat your brains in. And then they would make a rule about it to prohibit him from doing that again. He would find some other way to beat your brains in. He put in a lot of work, very hard worker, and a lot of fun. Oh my God, I filmed the show with Roland. I've eaten dinner with him a handful of times, spent some time with him. Dude, he is just a riot, a lot of fun, and love that guy. Roland Martin, number 3. I mean, just look at his career accomplishments. He's won more Angler of the Years than anybody. Anybody. I don't care what era that is happening in. That is impressive. Impressive, not impressive. Impressive. Unbelievable. Roland Martin, my number 3 on the best all-time bass anglers. Number 2, for me, yours truly, Rick Clunn. Rick Clunn is one of those icons. I mean, everybody on this list really is an icon of the sport. Rick Clunn, absolute icon. One of the best guys I've ever fished against. as far as a person goes as well. Rick would always beat to his own drum. Always did that. He always found stuff that other people would not find. When he won, I think a classic, it was 84 somewhere at Arkansas River, he found the best spot and just beat everybody's brains in. I mean, just crushed him. Won 4 classics. 4 classics. Dude, that's just... Clunn, his list of accomplishments, unbelievable. He won Bassmaster Elite Series events even late into his career, which is impressive. Just late in his career, he fished for a long, long time. He wasn't full-time fisherman until he was 30, so he got a little bit of a later start than some of the other guys like myself and some of the younger guys now. But yeah, his longevity, the number of classics that he made, just unbelievable. Rick Clunn, number 2. Number 1, I think it's probably pretty obvious at this point. Number 1, Kevin Van Dam, one of the best matrix. If you're taking the Madden football, making up a bass angler, like the best bass angler you could ever make, Van Dam is going to be right there at the top of the list. Like every category that makes an angler good, he is at the top. Unbelievable shallow water angler, unbelievable deep water angler. Van Dam probably was the best. Him and Aaron, probably the best two I've ever seen or ever been around at having the knack for making a bass bite. Just unbelievable angler for making bass bite I've ever been around. We fished a classic one time it was a specialty event. It was only 12 of us, I believe, and we were at a private lake. And so we were taking out some wounded veterans, and it was a very small lake. Everybody figured out kind of quickly there's a bunch of fish in this one little bay on this private lake, and everybody's basically casting to the same place, and Van Dam is pelting everybody because he was doing something, and I still don't know what he was doing. He was doing something and triggering those fish to bite, and the only other person that was catching fish was Aaron Martins. He caught like 2, and Van Dam caught like 8 or 9. And after sitting there and watching this and throwing to the same, I was like, okay, we're going to the other side of the lake. I'm not going to watch this anymore. So I went to the other side of the lake. Me and my warrior, we caught some fish over there, had a good time. But I can just tell you story after story after story of Kevin just making a mockery of the field, people he's fishing right side by side against. One of the most mental tough anglers I've ever been around. He's like the Tiger Woods, in my opinion, of bass fishing, because when he was in contention, he intimidated other anglers. I talked about with Denny Brower and how he would intimidate other anglers. When just his presence, Van Dam absolutely had that presence. He would just show up, and if he had a good bag the first, second, third day in the top content, it was almost like, oh God, here he comes again. He's going for your throat, and you knew he would do it. I'll never forget some of the times I was either in top 10 with Kevin or something like that, and he would chirp and say something to somebody else that was in second or third or in contention, thought they were going to have a big bag, and he would just chirp something, be like, oh, that might be good enough, but I don't think it'll be good enough today. And he'll turn and look, and he would turn and look at me and just give me that little wink. And if you spend some time around Kevin, you know exactly what I'm talking about. He'd give you that little wink, like he's done. I got him. He's done. Mentally, he's done. So Kevin was a lot of fun. A lot of respect for Kevin. He's done great things for the sport of bass fishing. Great ambassador for the sport. And I mentioned earlier, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 names on my honorable mention list for greatest bass anglers of all time. The first one I'm going to say is our reigning Bassmaster Angler of the Year, 2-time, twice in a row, Chris Johnston. Chris is not, he's probably closer to the midpoint of his career. What he did in his first part of his career is impressive, but in the last 5 to 6 years, what he has done as a competitive bass angler is unbelievable. He's been in contention in other years with the Bassmaster Angler of the Year. Been in contention, won it twice. He won multiple Elite Series events. He's won basically wherever he's been. He's been in a ton of top tens. The number of non-Bassmaster wins he's had on the St. Lawrence River is ridiculous, with and without his brother Corey. Corey is phenomenal in his own right, but Chris is working on being in this top 10 of all time list. You know, he's got some more time. I think he is right in the middle of his prime. I think he's not going anywhere for a number of years, and he's got a great head on his shoulders. And I don't like competing against him, I'll be honest with you. He's very, very good. Very good. But another honorable mention, I'm going to say Hank Parker. Hank Parker did not want to fish tournaments for 30 years. He fished them for quite a while. He won 2 Bassmaster Classics. His list of accomplishments is still pretty strong, and just one of the funniest dudes. Tells amazing stories. As an ambassador in bass fishing, fantastic. TV show obviously he's been on for a long, long time. So Hank Parker, definitely honorable mention on top 10 of all time. Another top 10 all time, David Dudley. If you've not spent any time looking at David Dudley's statistics, unbelievable, really. He had a run for probably 15 years where he had a couple years where he's ranked number 1 in the world, and nobody was even close. He is in the conversation of top 5 for me, without a doubt, top 5 best natural fishermen. Just, he had that knack. I fished with David a few times. Unbelievable natural fisherman. Never tied to anything. Great deep, great shallow. Tidal fisheries, lakes, rivers, ponds, it don't matter. It doesn't even have to be a bass. He's amazing saltwater fisherman, everything else. Dudley, honorable mention, top 10 all time. Another honorable mention, I'm going to have to say Gary Klein. Gary, if you look at his statistics, he's been very good for a long, long time. I mean, he's at the very, very tail end of his career at this point. The last few years, not done as well, but I mean, Father Time will get you. But man, his run of classics is phenomenal. I think it's like 28 in a row, somewhere in that range. That's just unbelievable, unbelievable. For being that good for that long, that's just impressive. And then, last but not least, I'm going to have to mention him. His career is just getting started as far as the public and the pro tournaments, and that's Trey McKinney. Dude, second in Bassmaster Angler of the Year standings 2 years in a row. His first 2 years on the Bassmaster Elite Series, he won a tournament each year, and second in Angler of the Year. This is not a fluke, people. He has been winning tournaments since he was 10 years old, maybe before. 10 or 12 years old on, he's been beating grown men like a damn redheaded stepchild, or whatever little saying you want to throw in there. McKinney's been good for a long time. He is going to be a lot of fun to watch. And another one of those dudes, I really don't want to compete against him because he is freaking unbelievable. And he's different, good for a different combination. He's more of the Jacob Wheeler mold in that he works very, very hard, does a ton of prep, and he has a phenomenal knack for figuring out how to make fish bite. I think that might be McKinney's best attribute, is that he has that knack that I talked about earlier about making fish bite. And one of the other things that impresses me about McKinney is that he does not seem to get ruffled, to whether if somebody protests him or the weather changes or any kind of curveball that is thrown at him. He's just the same dude. Like mentally, in the way he carries himself, he's just the same dude. And mentally, that going out there with that mindset is is impressive to see. So Trey McKinney, honorable mention for this best top 10 all-time list. If you have any suggestions, drop it down there in the comments. I want to hear what you have to say. Hear what you have to say about my list. See what you have to say about your list. If you have your own list, drop that down in the comments, and we can have some fun. But I appreciate everybody listening. And as always, subscribe, likes, follow, all that kind of stuff. Appreciate everybody watching.